middle colonies. And our focus is going to be, we're going to learn about the middle and southern colonies in terms of the founders, the economy, the geography, and the people. I think that this is very different than the New England colonies that we've already been studying. So Peter Stuyvesant, you should remember Peter Stuyvesant, we studied him earlier. He was that harsh governor of New Amsterdam, which is located in present-day New York, and he surrendered the colony to the British. His nickname was Peg Leg Pete, or even Old Silver Nails, because he used to have silver nails in his peg leg. What city develops from the settlement known as New Amsterdam? Like I said, it is New York City, named after the Duke of York, who was brother to the king. Therefore, he was allowed to take over if he was able to capture the colony. So the four middle colonies that we are focusing on, we've already talked about New England all the way up here in the north. This is the middle here in the middle, and then we're going to get into the southern colonies as well. But the middle colonies are New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. Not to be confused with Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire that are in the New England colonies. So New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. Here's another map that just shows the different colonies by color, by region. The middle colonies were known for diversity and religious freedom. How do we know that? Well, if you were to look at the middle colonies, there were Swedish, there were Dutch, English, Germans, and Africans. But it wasn't just ethnic diversity, they also had religious diversity, which it has Protestants, Catholics, Quakers, and even Jews. The thinking slide is, how does this compare with the New England colonies? And I'm going to give you a second to think about it. You should have been able to say, wait, whoa, New England. Everybody was English and everybody was a Puritan. That's very different. The middle colonies are like a hodgepodge, a melting pot of all different cultures where you could throw everybody in. And New York is still that way today. So how does the Dutch West India Company attract settlers to New Netherland? Well, they had a patroon system. A patroon was someone who brought 50 settlers to New Netherland, and they would receive a land grant as a reward. So it really was this wealthier person who would bring people to New Netherlands, and because of it, they would get land. They had to be wealthy. How did the English acquire New Netherlands from the Dutch? And we've talked about this. England's King Charles II wanted New Netherlands, so he sent his brother, the Duke of York, with ships. He told his brother, if you're able to capture New Netherland, you can be the proprietor, the leader of that colony. And the Dutch surrendered New Amsterdam without even firing a single shot. And we've talked about this. You could see here's Peg Leg Pete, Peter Stuyvesant. This is the letter here that came from the English that are off in the sea. And they didn't fire a single shot because two reasons. One, all of the ammunition was wet. And two, not everybody liked him because he was a harsh governor. So it changes names from New Netherland to New York, and it becomes a proprietary colony. A proprietary colony is a colony that is governed by one single owner or proprietor. And so New York was governed by the Duke of York. He was the leader. Now we're going to transition to William Penn. And, how did he acquire land for his colony in America? Well, actually, William Penn, I'm wondering if you can think what colony he started. Hint, hint, look at the name, Pennsylvania. Right. And he acquired this land because the king owed his father money. And this was how he paid off that debt, is he gave them land in the New World. William Penn, he was the founder of the colony of Pennsylvania, and it was for Quakers where they could worship freely. So what did he guarantee all of his settlers? He guaranteed a few things. He promised religious freedom and equality, and he treated, even so much as treating Indians fairly. He really was, he believed that, we should treat everyone equally, we should treat everyone fairly, and that included Native Americans. He also didn't want to have the wars that they had in New England, so he was trying to learn from their mistakes as well. So let's describe the religious beliefs of the Quakers. All Quakers should live in peace and harmony. All people should live in peace and harmony. They believe that you could know God through your inner light. You didn't need to go to church. You didn't need to go and listen to a priest. And what I find interesting is that they were whipped and imprisoned and hanged by Puritans in Massachusetts for this. And I say hypocritical, and why is that hypocritical? What do you think? Well, the Puritans came to the New World because they were being whipped and persecuted and imprisoned back in England. Now they're doing the same thing to somebody who is different than them in New England. So the colony of Pennsylvania in 3 ways, if we were to describe it. Sorry about that. If we were to describe the colony of Pennsylvania in 3 ways. Let's see. Diverse. What else could we say? Peaceful. And a place where they treated everyone equally. Let's get into the southern colonies. 5 southern colonies. Well, we have New England, middle, in between New England and southern, and here's the southern. Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. Let's go over that again. The 5 southern colonies: Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. So why did Lord Baltimore establish the colony of Maryland? Well, you should know Baltimore is a city in Maryland, and he set up Maryland for Catholics escaping persecution in England. Remember, anyone who didn't follow the Anglican Church, the Church of England, was persecuted. So he wanted to set up a place in America for Catholics. And to attract more settlers, he promised religious freedom for all settlers. Maryland's economy, what was it based on? Well, Maryland was based on tobacco, very similar to Virginia. That's how they made their money. Well, the Carolinas, we're going to group North Carolina, South Carolina, Maryland. We're going to group North Carolina and South Carolina together. The economy of the Carolinas was based on indigo and rice. Indigo is a plant, it looks like this, that's used to make blue dye. And it has a little, they would pick it and then they would be able to use it to make like blue shirts and different colors. And rice is the other one. Slavery, how did it begin in the Carolinas? Well, white farmers from Barbados moved there with their slaves. And it's actually the Barbados slave laws that had these strict codes. It was actually called the Barbados Slave Code because they were worried about rebellions. And so that whole idea of treating the slaves negatively came from the white farmers from Barbados. What were the 2 types of colonies? This is our thinking slide. Well, you should say to me, well, I know one of them is a proprietary colony, a single owner. I know the other one might be the joint stock company, when the group owns money together. They pull it together and they own a colony. Well, here's the third kind. It's the royal colony. And in 1729, North and South Carolina became a royal colony. What is a royal colony? It's ruled by a governor appointed by the king. So the king would pick someone to rule for England. Let's talk about James Oglethorpe. He founded the colony of Georgia, and he named it after King George. So you could see some of these names came from places in England. And what's fascinating about Georgia is that it was founded as a refuge for debtors or people who owed money in England. So they could make a new start in the New World. It also helped the colonies. It also helped England to clear out their jails. And why would they do this? Why would they send all these people that were in jail and in debt to the New World? I still don't like the idea of putting someone in jail because they owed money, because then they can never pay it back because they're in jail. But they sent them to the New World. And the English government wanted to use Georgia for protection. Protection? Protection against what, you may ask? If you look here, Georgia is right here, and the Carolinas are really good for growing crops. Who's down here at the bottom? You should be able to see in Florida, it was Spanish. So if the Spanish were to attack, they didn't want them to attack South Carolina and North Carolina where they had a lot of good crops and they were growing stuff. So they said, let's make Georgia, let's put all the debtors there. If for some chance Spain attacks, they're going to only attack the people that were in debt. So it was used as a border colony or a protection colony so that they didn't get to these colonies up north. 50 and 51. What is the tidewater and what crops were grown in the tidewater? Well, the tidewater is the flat land along the Atlantic coast, and they grew rice, indigo, and tobacco. So you can see that indigo is back. They grew rice and even tobacco. That's the southern colonies. Now, the only other thing you want to make sure of is that you finish the map on the first page. I know a lot of people waited, but you can fill that in anywhere. If you need help with it, just send me an email. All right, thank you.